listeners. Welcome to the first episode of Popcorn and Products, a tasty take on product placements.
I'm your today's host, Carolina, and this is L&K.
Joining us today is a special guest, Mr. Neeraj Sharma, who is an MBA graduate from MICA.
Having 15 years of experience working in the advertising industry, he's currently holding a role of Senior Vice President at Saatchi Saatchi. And he will be joining us today. Hope you enjoy the first episode.
Hello, Neeraj. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So as the name suggests already, we wanted to talk to you about product placements in movies and TV series. So maybe to start off, do you recall any product placements that you've seen that you were like, oh, okay, I really recall that brand from this movie or this TV series? Is there anything that comes to your mind?
Recently, I saw this Karan Johar movie, which had just come. I can't recall the name. Some
Rocky and
Raja
Rani.
and Rani.
Rocky and Rani.
Yes, Rocky and Rani. Yeah. So there are multiple product placements. So as an advertising guy, I pay attention to it. But if you ask me which those products were, I might not remember it.
Okay.
So is it that you just remember that there was a product in the movie, not really what brand it is?
Yes.
That's interesting.
I remember from old Hindi movies, Pass had a collaboration with some movie. I remember that, but I remember that because it was done so badly and explicitly that I remember because that's not how it's done. So yeah, these are the two facets which I can recall.
So if this is the case with every consumer, if they watch a movie and they kind of don't even remember what product it is, why do you think brands are doing it?
So mostly brands nowadays, if you see, brands leverage all the possible touch points they have. And so they are doing PVC, they are doing print, they are present on outdoor, they invest certain money on digital, they do the content strategy, and then one of the levers, which is also the product placement. One of the reasons which product placement is done that it brings certain sense of prestige to it. Right? Generally, media is prestige agnostic unless you are doing ad on Super Bowl, then of course, or IPL, then it's a prestige issue. But otherwise, getting into print and TVC is pretty normal affair. But if you get associated with, suppose, a movie which is a mega budget, directed by top notch of directors and having a top notch actors into it, then it brings certain prestige to the brand. So that could be one reason people associate with it. Of course, and if movie gets mega hit, you can always build on it and some people would remember. So that also adds to it. So that could be one possible reason that still finds its place in the media budget.
Okay, that's very insightful. Do you think there are any specific factors that enhance or hinder brand recall when it comes to product placements?
So there are two ways. And I told you that two cases I remember are totally opposite. One I remember because it was done so badly, and maybe because I was in advertising and I was like, what is happening here? So that could be one reason for me to remember it. And second, which was pretty natural, but I don't even remember the brand name. But the right example I will tell you if you have seen the Permanent Roommates, the web episode. Right? Have you seen the web series Permanent Roommates?
I haven't.
No. Sorry.
Okay. So it's a Hindi web series, one of the top ones. The second season has come just now after 10 years. But I still remember the first series, the brand placement, which was Ola. Yeah. So first they branded Permanent Roommate with Ola so that you remember. But what's interesting about there was one character who was a taxi driver
Okay.
who used to drive an Ola. And it was the main character in the scheme of a story. So that character still lives on the second season. The association has not gone ahead. So every time that character comes, and it's very natural for him because he's an Ola driver. So we would talk about, "Ki, I have taken Ola, I'm taking this." So it's not comes either as jarring first, and it doesn't stay only for nanosecond that you cannot make a mark. And it's not also something which is you will scoff off. Yeah, it's naturally fits into the story. So it gets its own screen time without being interruptive or jarring. So that's one example which I remember, which was done beautifully. A lot of brands which they when they pair up with web episodes, if it fits naturally or organically, that's your best chance to remember. So that's
Mm.
I don't know whether I answered your question or not, but that's
Mhm.
something I feel.
I was just wondering what cognitive processes go on in consumers' minds when they see advertisements, specifically in
Okay,
product placements related to brand recall, but maybe you can compare it to traditional advertisings we see on TV or in the cinema.
sure. Okay. So any advertising works on memory associations and top of the mind recall. The better you build the memory association, better your chances to getting recall. No matter whether it's print, TV, digital, every advertising works on the same principle. Now, coming to your question about the cognitive process, I remember one more example. It's Cristiano Ronaldo was briefing the press, and he
Remove.
cited the Coke bottle and
Yeah.
said, "I wanted water." Right. So that generated immense conversation both about water and Coke. Right. Something which Coke didn't want to do. So,
Mm,
but these moments you cannot create. It's you you are fortunate that your brand and it was negative also. So I don't know how much it went into the favor of Coke. Right.
mm,
But it worked on memory association because it was something surprising. It was not something regular. Right? In every press conference, there is a Coke can staying there. No one notices that there is Coke on. Of course, the Coke can. They invest millions of dollars and they get time, but no one remembers that when Messi or Ronaldo was briefing, I saw a Coke bottle right there. No one remembers that. But one thing which someone said that remove this, that memorization is very strong and clear. And the reason being that it was a surprise. Yeah, human memory works on a surprise and odd. So
mm.
if you have, suppose, let's talk about the outdoors. You have 10 outdoors lining similar way. One outdoor is just a solid color, one simple word on it. You might notice it because something it's odd. Right? So human memory work on surprise or in terms of consistency. If you have talked about certain things multiple times, you will remember it, which we called mugging, right? In the students in the mugging, when if same message is played multiple times, time over time, just
Mhm.
because of sheer repetition, you remember it,
Okay.
or there is surprise element, even if it's for a small moment, you remember it. And third, the example which I gave you about permanent roommates, it was the part of story, the story you remember because it's not a fact.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to remember fact. It's much easier to remember the story. Right? So these
Mm,
are three examples which can build a memory structure.
right.
And as a product placement, you have to work on either of these models,
Mhm.
either of these cognitive models, rather than just putting your product out there in a mega movie, in a mega star, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's my understanding of it.
Like for people working in marketing as an advertising specialist, like would you have some insights or some tips on how to make it successfully? Like what you've just said, that the three ways is super helpful, but maybe you have some example that has been done that you think was super successful in terms of product placements, or like how you would approach it in the current era of low attention span and being bombarded by brands and not remembering all the ads you see every day.
Okay. So I will digress a little bit, but I will come to your
Yep.
point. This Super Bowl ad of Tide last year, right, where they said, "Is this a Tide ad?" You just check out the film. So what they have done, um, so every ad starts with a situations which belongs to certain other mega hit ad. Yeah, so it could be suppose car ad, right? But it turns out that it's a Tide ad because someone is wearing white t-shirt or shirt which is shiny and clean. And then say that whenever you see white shirt which is shiny and clean, it might be a Tide ad. What they built on the memorization of Tide, but they built on every other work which has been done. So they piggybacked on already successful piece, and so it's not a product placement. But what I'm saying that they use the existing memory structure to ride on their brand. So if you want to do a product placement, you have to ride on a certain memory structure which is already present, right?
Mm.
Or you make it a part of story. For example, there is a person who only drinks Pepsi, huh? And you establish that character in the movie. It might be 1 second that he refuses to drink soft drink, which is not Pepsi. And in the end, there is a situation where he is okay even if he's not taking Pepsi. So that's something a surprise. You broke the story, it's a part of the story, and hence people will remember it. So coming back to two or three things which you need to build on, that either it's a part of story, either it's a repetition, or you appear at the crucial juncture which changes the storyline and the product is part of that. So even if it's for a small second, it makes an impact. Right? It's it's only these three, four ways which you can make a product placement successful. Having said that, you don't have actually control on how your product and what juncture it will appear.
Mm.
But generally, product placements happen that you get the story, you get the script. Yeah? If if you are involved into actual the story of making, then you have better chance of getting successful than there is a product, here is the money, and put it somewhere in your hour film or 30-second series. Right? So then it might blink and miss. No one has time to actually notice your product. Consumer doesn't have any investment to remember your product. Yeah, he's invested in the story. He's invested in those stars who have come to submit. If you can be part of either those story, those moments which star is, your chances of being successful is much more rather than just saying that there is the money and put it somewhere. Then it's just a blind spot.
Okay, so just to conclude the podcast, so having worked in the advertising industry yourself for more than 15 years now, do you think product placements add more value compared to traditional TV commercials, or and do they only work for well-established brands because product placements only work with brand recall? You can't spread brand awareness using these.
Correct. Very, very right. It's very important point which you have raised about awareness also. Not suggesting is that measurement is that much. There is a reason we don't actively recommend product placement because measurement is difficult. The
Mm.
metric of measurement is not very set. So you don't know whether this product placement has worked or not. You could
Mhm.
have, and if 10 things are running, you are also running an ad on TV or digital, and there is product placement, you cannot attribute whether this spike in either sale or awareness has happened due to product placement. If you're only running product placement, then it might be easier for you to tell that. So one of the reasons we don't generally suggest is that measurement is difficult. Second, we are more invested in talking about the product and creating story and the asset for the media rather than thinking about which films and which content series is coming on. Where it becomes useful when you are creating content. If you have a content strategy, then you go about it and thinking about that how can I create content which is by the brand, but it's for general consumption. So you're creating a movie or web series or something, you're not creating an ad. In that scenario, it's much easier for you to do a product placement because it's your own asset, right? You are creating that asset and hence you can choose where to bring your product, where not to. Yeah. If you're dependent on third party, then your control is much less. So that's one of the reasons where we don't recommend much, and we also don't know that whether you have money to get featured into for 5 seconds in that mega movie or any content.
Thank you so much for answering all our questions. It was really insightful having you on the first episode of our podcast. We hope the audience also enjoyed it. And until next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for joining.
And that's a wrap for today's episode, folks. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of product placements.
Do subscribe to Popcorn and Products for more tasty takes on product placements. Until next time, keep popping that popcorn
And spotting those products.